as we go, or towards the end?
Anytime you have a question, you can go ahead and ask, and I'll try to answer as much as I can.
That close to you, so they can hear you better.
All right, so I'll start with this authenticating SFMC cloud pages with OKTA. Now, before I get into the actual topic, I would want to kind of cover the basics of SFMC, because most people here are from the Salesforce or Force.com background, and you know how Salesforce CRM works and how Experience Cloud works. But the thing is, Marketing Cloud is a bit of a different product when you compare it with the Salesforce. Like, everything changes. So just on SFMC, it's an automation, analytics, and customer engagement platform. I mean, any marketing automation that you would want to do, you'll be able to do it in SFMC. So you have multiple methods of marketing like email, SMS, push notification, WhatsApp, or line messenger notification, digital advertising, like using Social Studio and stuff like that. And since it's a sort of Salesforce product, it can communicate or transfer data with other Salesforce products without too much of trouble. Now that's out of the way. Like Cloudpages. Now, Cloudpages, basically, why do we use Cloudpages? Let's say, as part of your marketing campaign, you want to show some offers, or the most common use case is you want to set up a preference page where you want your customers to. I'll just load this everything. That's a bad idea to have animation there, I guess. So if you want your customer to have a portal where they can record their preference, like, oh, do you want to be contacted through email or SMS? So the most common use case for Cloudpages is preference center page, and there are so many complex use cases as well. Like Cloudpages is literally a web application which is hosted in Salesforce. Now, given that it is a web application, like, there are lots of things that you want to do typically if you want to host a web application, but those are all covered in Cloudpages under Marketing Cloud. Now, is it a CMS? You can't really say Marketing Cloud is a CMS or Cloudpages is a CMS, but then you can store the images and assets like script files, everything in Marketing Cloud and use them in Cloudpages. Now, these are like microsites. Now, there's a different concept of microsite in Marketing Cloud, not to be confused with Cloudpages. An easy way of understanding is microsites is what Cloudpage was called a few years before. Now, Cloudpages is a bit of an advanced or improvised version of microsites. Now, you can build external Marketing Cloud sites, like Preference Center or Lead Capture Form, or you can build dashboards. Now, why do you want to build dashboards in Cloudpages? I mean, not just dashboard, any single page web application that you would want to build where you want to consume data from Marketing Cloud, you can do it in Cloudpages, because Cloudpages, since it resides in Marketing Cloud, it can easily access any data that you have within your Marketing Cloud instance. Now, in case of domain, let's say you send all your marketing emails from let's take a domain example.com. All your marketing emails would go from mail.example.com, and your Cloudpages would have a subdomain which is cloud.mail.example.com. So any Cloudpages where you would want to set up your preferences, or you want to show offer information or customized or personalized offer information, could have a domain called cloud.mail.example.com, which technically is a subdomain to your website. Now, this is publicly accessible to everyone. So if you would want to compare it, it is more like an Experience Cloud site for any Experience Cloud developers, or it is like Force.com site for any Salesforce developers. So yeah, now the ways you can access data, from Cloudpages, you can use AMP script, SSJS, and API function. Now these are like multiple or different ways you can or different programming languages. I would say like AMP script is one type of programming languages. It has support to a set of functions, and then SSJS is server-side JavaScript. It's much more flexible than AMP script. And then you have this API functions, like including REST and SOAP API functions, we can absolutely use in Cloudpages. Now, that's basics of Cloudpages. Now, that's like you have Salesforce Marketing Cloud, which is a marketing automation platform where you can send email messages, push notifications, anything that you want to communicate to your customer, be it transactional or commercial messages. You can do that through Salesforce Marketing Cloud. But then Cloudpages is very specific to web pages. Any web page application that you would want to show to your customer, you can do it. Now, cloud pages are publicly accessible. Now that's where the key problem starts. Okay, how does this cloud page and everything works? Like you have link to your landing page, and what the landing page does is it loads your front end and the HTML, and then you have this backend code resource which gets rendered. So these two sections are or all these three sections comes under marketing cloud. All the green ones comes under marketing cloud. Now basically your HTML code gets rendered along with your AMP script and SSJ scripts, and all this logic gets executed. It would get data from it would get data from not just from marketing cloud. It can get data from any connected system. When I say any connected system, it is basically you can so there's this thing called marketing cloud connector. You can use it to connect your marketing cloud instance with Salesforce, and then there are AMP script functions which you can use directly in cloud pages to get data from your Salesforce instance. Not just from marketing cloud, you can also get data from Salesforce. So now since I have said that it's an open or it's a publicly accessible site, anything that you build in cloud pages is publicly accessible. What are the few common ways that you can secure your landing pages? So the first one is the obvious one, SSL certification, which basically SSL certificate adds a layer of encryption. Sorry. So this basically SSL certificate, everyone knows HTTPS. It basically encrypts your data when it gets transmitted in your network. I mean, you don't want an intruder or a hacker capture the packets and then be able to read things. So SSL is like standard. It comes as part of your sender authentication package. Now, just to give a quick background of what sender authentication package is, you'd see all these emails coming from subdomains, right? Like if example.com is your domain, your mails will come from mail.example.com. Now, these mail.example.com is what Marketing Cloud calls it as sender authentication package. This is basically you telling Salesforce Marketing Cloud that, hey, you can use my subdomain and you can send out emails, and all the emails can be authenticated. So anytime an email provider, for example, Gmail or Yahoo or AOL receives an email that says the email is from mail.example.com, it would reach out to example.com and say that, hey, is this domain actually actually the right one? Can Marketing Cloud or ExactTarget use this domain for sending email? So now that is where Marketing Cloud would say that, since the domains are delegated using sender authentication package and everything, now Marketing Cloud and your website would have an agreement on how we can authenticate this using SPF and DKIM and DMARC. So all these security things. I mean, when you typically buy this Marketing Cloud product, your account executive would explain all this concept and would basically set them up for you. Sorry, that's like. Okay. Now, next one is web page security headers. Now, this is an interesting thing, right? So, given that these pages are publicly accessible, there are few ways through which you can restrict access to the page, where you can basically say, hey, I want a particular IP, only a particular set of IP to be, to access my cloud page, or I do not want. So things like strict origin, referral policy, and content security policy. These are basically to avoid any cross-site scripting and SQL injections from happening in your site. And you can also do a bit of advanced stuff like restricting IPs or restricting a particular host from accessing your web pages. Now, Google reCAPTCHA, this is a very interesting concept. Let's take this simple example, right? You build a lead submission form, and it is quite possible that people can run a bot and submit this form like 10,000 different times with some dummy data. Now that would become a DDoS attack. We do not want that to happen. And actually, Salesforce monitors for these suspicious accesses, and it would shut down the pages. And this has actually happened where somebody released or somebody deployed a cloud page for a lead submission, and then so this was for an event, and then there was a huge number of people started submitting the page, which triggered their alerts, and then Salesforce shut down the page and then reached out, explained that, hey, this is the reason. So Salesforce So you'll have to understand the Salesforce actually monitors all these accesses, and if it thinks that it's a suspicious one, it will go ahead and stop it. But then we don't want to trust just Salesforce from doing that. So it's good to implement Google reCAPTCHA. Now, just to tell you what Google reCAPTCHA is, now there are two different versions of it. The version 2, that's the bit of an annoying pop-up window that you see, which would ask you to select this. Hey, select all the bridges or select all the buses and cycles. Yeah, I mean V2, I wouldn't say, but V3 is the latest one. It's invisible, non-intrusive. You would have this reCAPTCHA in your page, and it would internally know whether you're the right user or you're in the right session and submitting the form, and then you're not some bot who's trying to like submit this form like 100 different times. So anytime you implement your page, which you think that it is going to have a huge traffic, it's good to have Google reCAPTCHA implemented. Go for V3. So that's my suggestion. Now, APIs with Cloudpages. I remember Vishal mentioned that he has created SP single page web application, and MuleSoft. Like we know, MuleSoft is what that. So MuleSoft has been commonly used for building APIs. Now, you can use Marketing Cloud Cloudpages technically to build APIs. Again, keep in mind that I don't suggest in doing that. I mean, if it's a small use case, yeah, you can try it out. I don't really suggest this. So, but again, if you develop, I'll tell you the reason why I don't suggest this. So you can secure. I mean, recently there was a release on there was this AMP function, JWT AMP function, which was released. Now we know how REST API function works. So if you need to make a call to a REST API endpoint, so REST APIs are mostly secured with OAuth, and OAuth is basically a way of validating, saying that hey, I want to access some of your requests. Now I would present with some username and password. We call it client ID and client secret, and the server would validate the client ID and client secret and say that yes, you are registered with me. So I'm going to give you a token that is valid for X number of minutes. In most of the cases, it's like 20 minutes, or most of the cases in marketing for APIs is like 20 minutes. So the token will be valid for 20 minutes, and with that token, every time you make a request to get some data from the server, in this case, marketing cloud server, you pass the token, and then marketing cloud that would validate it, and it would give you the data back. Now, what is this token? This token is JWT token. It is JSON web token. I'm right, like JSON web token. Yeah. So this token is basically if you use normal JavaScript, you would be able to generate this token, especially with ES6. ES6 is the latest standards of latest standard in JavaScript. Like, but again, marketing.ssj is basically is in an older version. It uses ES3, not exactly ES6. So what Salesforce releases, they have released an AMP function called getJWT and getJWT by key name. So anytime you want to create a cloud page, and if you want to secure it, you want to create a cloud page as API, and if you want to secure it, you should go ahead and use it. Okay, so this is how it works. Good, I have a picture with this. Okay, so you have a landing page. So you have your application, a server application. So if it wants to access your marketing cloud API, it would call page number 1, which is the OAuth page with its client ID and client secret, and this would return the JWT token. Of course, the JWT token will be generated by getJWT function, and then let's say it calls up a different function, different web page. Now it would pass the JWT token to the web page where there will be some business logic saying that hey, I need to get data from this data extension, or I need to do this particular function, or send out an email, or send out a message, or start an automation. So any of those things, it would before it does any of those things, it will validate whether the token is valid, and then perform the function, and it will return the data. Now there are a lot of things that you can do with this JWT token. Things like you verify the token, and you can also restrict the token for X number of minutes. You can specify the validity of the token and the domains from where the request can come from, request can originate. So if you do not want a third party to be using, even if the client ID or client secret is like somebody gets hold of it, you can restrict based on the domain as well. But of course, if somebody can get hold of your client ID, client secret, they would absolutely know about spoofing the host. So that's that. Now, why do we secure with OKTA, and why not other methods? So since I've been telling about this, anyone, if they have access to your cloud page URL, they'll be able to open it because it's public one. But then there are some specific use cases where people wanted to build internal dashboards I mean, we have built a full-fledged application with Vue.js, of course, a single-page application, but then there will be multiple routes and calls within the single page with Vue.js. Now, the problem is anyone who has access to this one would be able to see this data, and we do not want this to happen. And this is for an enterprise client, and most of the enterprise who has Okta were like, oh, why don't we restrict access with Okta? And we're like, okay, let's try this. So dashboards. So that's where we started using Okta. We started securing our pages with Okta.
And just a quick comment here, real quick, is that in the normal Salesforce world that most of us know, we have things like Lightning App Builder, we have internal applications, internal ways that we can build different things, be able to access Salesforce. In the Marketing Cloud world, it's as though you're trying to do everything with a public force.com site or a public community. So you don't have, by default, you don't have this sort of authenticated web app building environment that we do in the core platform, sales service, etc. Therefore, you'll end up having to use Cloudpages, and therefore you have this problem that you need.
Exactly.
Yeah, because the original purpose of having this Cloudpages is only for the subscription and unscription of services.
Right.
That's why they have it open it all, so everyone can access, and no one. We cannot have a restriction on
exactly
who is going to access.
Exactly.
I mean, the intent of Cloudpages is for customers to access, and we are kind of bending it a little bit so we can use it for internal users as well. So yeah, is Okta the only way? It's one of the way, and since many enterprises uses it, they are. The third point. So this is one quirky way which I was using for quite some time. Like use the simple username password field. Data is stored in data extension, as in like the username and password are stored in data extension. So it's like use AMP function to validate if the username and password is right. Now this is not so secure one because anyone who has access to your marketing platform will be able to see your username. So that's not. Definitely it is not going to fly by your security team. They are going to have a lot of concerns with that. Now there is this AMP function called Authenticated Employee ID. By the name of it, you would think that it's something to authenticate you or authenticate the people in marketing cloud, but it doesn't do that. It doesn't perform any authentication kind of work. It used to in microsites, but in Cloudpages it doesn't. So that's the reason why we went with an external service provider to authenticate an authorized user. Now after integration, so yes, before going to the actual implementation, what is Okta? It's for identity access management. It's an identity access management service provider. There are two concepts, right? One is authenticating, is to figure out, is to identify the user, is to say that, hey, are you this person who you say you are? And then authorize is to control your access. Okay, I know that you're this person, but then you asked me for this dashboard, but do you actually have access to the dashboard? So that's authorized. Now, Okta is very developer friendly. They give you widgets which you can configure pretty easily in your web app. I'll show you the code. It's like literally probably like what 40 or 50 lines of code. You can build a simple web app with a widget. Now, what are the different authentication methods? Okta basically provides single factor, two factor, and multi-factor authentication, and multi-factor is the one that we are using. So the protocols, now methods of authentication protocols are very different. Like protocols, there are like 4 different protocols that are used: OAuth and OpenID, and like what Okta or the current implementation that we're going to look uses OpenID. Okay, so the previous one that we saw, where I explained about how Cloudpages, where somebody opens a cloud page, it would go to marketing cloud instance and get all the data, and then it would return back. But then what we are basically introducing is this particular line where before accessing any resource, we are going to authenticate the user, and if the user is authenticated successfully, then all the other resources will be served back to the user, like dashboards and stuff. In that, this is kind of the architecture, right? When the user kind of launches your cloud page, Okta libraries would trigger this sign-in widget. So the sign-in widget would show up where the user would enter the credentials, and then the sign-in widget would basically reach out to Okta. Now, the SDK is the one that basically serves this widget, your software development kit is the one that serves this widget. And once you enter your username and the password, it would go to Okta, and Okta would Okta would not directly give you the token. It gives a different one called interaction code. Now this interaction code is again valid for some time. So when you try to log into Okta, and if you enter your username and wait for like 10 minutes for entering your password, it is going to time out because the interaction code times out. So it would give you the interaction code, and then it would again, you enter your password, and with the interaction code, it would basically try to get you tokens. And if Okta successfully validates you, it would return a token, which is the step 3, and this token would be stored in your session, in your cookies. So anytime you want to opt out, anytime you want to log out, you can log out. But again, it's up to the developers to either write a code to clear the cookies or not. So if you want to be super secure about your logout, go to your session cookies and delete all the cookies. Something that I do every time. So yeah, the cookie gets stored in the session. And the fifth point is what your web app, as a web app developer, you would do. Anytime the customer asks for a page to be accessed, all you have to do is you have to call user info endpoint with the token. Of course, the token is something that you can get from your session, from your cookie. You get the token from the cookie, and then make a call to user info, and then basically Okta would say, yes, this user is authenticated and valid. So you can call this user info at any point, multiple names that you want. Embedded sign-in widget. How is the sign-in widget going to look like? So it's going to look like this in your page. This is the vanilla implementation, and of course you can customize the sign-in with your own set of logos. You can change the CSS, and there are multiple ways you can authenticate. Just username, and after you enter username, it would ask you different forms of authentication. Now, if you want a bit of a different authentication method, you can change the configuration, and you can remove things like entering password or removing fastpass. Now, fastpass is a pretty interesting concept. Comes into VDUG, where you can use your biometrics information for authenticating. So what do we do to enable this widget? You need to have an Okta account, and once you have Okta account, you need to create an Okta app, and you need to whitelist your URL, because you're basically going to have to inform Okta that, hey, the request is going to, or the login request is going to come from this particular server, and it comes from some other server. Don't accept it. So you need to whitelist your URL saying, and then you need to enable CORS and redirect. CORS is cross origin policy. Yeah, the CORS basically says that if this server asks for a particular resource, cross origin resource sharing policy. So if let's say Marketing Cloud is asking for a JavaScript file from you, or an authentication to come from you, basically it's for resources, basically it's for file. You'll have to inform Okta that if the request comes from Marketing Cloud, you need to allow it, and then redirects. You are going to have to allow redirects as well. There are two JS files, basically sign in and auth JS file, pretty standard one. If you go for any other implementation that uses client-side JavaScript, that's going to be a standard one. But since this is Marketing Cloud, where we are going to use server-side JavaScript, there are a few tweaks you might want to do in both sign-in and auth JS file if you're going for some advanced level of implementation. A standard implementation doesn't need those changes. But if you are going to use a multiple web page, so where you want to navigate from page 1 to page 2, and then you want to persist the token and then share it across multiple pages, that's where you need to make changes in your sign-in and auth.js. And yeah, so you need to sprinkle some code. I'm going to show them code now. So code snippet. Now, loading this auth and sign-in JS libraries. So comes standard 6.4.2. That's like the latest version of it. You can load it from their CDN. No issues with that. Yes, this Okta container, right? This one line of code is this one line of code is where Okta sign-in JS file, the sign-in JavaScript, or the Okta SDK is going to replace this one line of code into a beautiful widget where you can log in. That's beautiful, right? JavaScript and its power. And then you need to have few configurations like redirect URI. Now, to which URL should I redirect to once a login is successful or logout is successful? Then you need to specify your client ID and Okta host, and these are like some dummy values. So don't try to use it. So I mean, once you register app, you be able to get all these things. And so basically, the issuer is going to be OAuth default, redirect client ID, and using for that. So these are the configs that you need to have. So we basically did three things. We imported a couple of JavaScript files, and then we set up a line where the login section will be displayed, and then few configurations. So we've got the configuration ready. Now, after the configuration, so from SDK, we are going to load this function called Okta sign-in function by passing the configuration. Basically, what this Okta sign-in function does is it will internally know that, hey, if somebody asks me to sign in, these are the 10 or 50 different steps that I'll have to do. So that's what SDK does. SDK is this orchestration of functions and flows. So you declare a new instance of Okta sign-in with your Okta config, and then you need to show this login screen because you have a div tag, and then you're basically tying that div tag to your Okta SDK. Now, show sign in to get tokens. There are a couple of different functions. There's there's a function called show sign in, so that function will not give you token, but this is the function that gives you token. If you look at their reference document, they typically use show sign in function. I had a bit of difficulty trying to figure out why the token was not stored in such. Make sure that you use this function. This is where once you have the token, you'd have to call this function token manager.set token to kind of set it in your SDK. Now, how do you validate user? Simple. You don't have to specifically make an API call. The SDK does all those things. You just call Okta sign in, Okta client token, get user info. It would validate the user, and it will get you the details. Now to log out. Now this is the one that I told you. Like if before you log out, you want to make sure that you clear the tokens. So you clear the tokens, and then you specify the redirect URL as well. Most of the implementation does not give you this redirect URL, and the problem if you don't give a redirect URL is it would take you to the parent domain, as in all your marketing cloud pages would be your domain / and then your page name. But when there's no page name, marketing cloud is basically going to throw a 500 error. You do not want the logout, after logout, you do not want to land into a 500 page. So always specify a redirect URL. Now, and then reload it. Yeah. SSJS code. Now, those are all standard, bit of a standard client-side implementation. Now, this Java-side server-side implementation is this is a bit of the tricky part, and it is very specific to marketing cloud. Basically, you can take any other code or any other steps that I have explained before and use it in any web application. You want to build a web application in Node.js, you can do it. But then this particular piece of code is specific to marketing cloud. Now, I told you about the token ID that gets stored in your cookie, and this is how you access cookie in server side in marketing cloud server side JavaScript. Of course, in client side it's different, but in server side JavaScript you have to use platform request get cookie, and then this is the exact cookie one. And and then you specifically make an post API call to your URL. So the URL is here. You make a post API call to OAuth default introspect, and that post API call is going to give you a response, which will have which will basically say whether the user is active or not. And once you get that session value, you basically can pass it or even directly use it in SSJs, or even pass it to AmpScript. So platform variable set value is basically passing it down to AmpScript. Now, of course, once you pass it to AmpScript, you can pass it down to GTL as well. There are like 3 different programming languages in marketing cloud: GTL, AmpScript, and SSJS. Not many people talk about GTL. It is not widely used. It is used in email specific one, but in case of Cloudpages, it is AmpScript and SSJS. So you pass the session details, and then you would also want to pass client ID, Okta host, and redirect URLs, because remember the changes that I mentioned about like in sign-in.js and auth.js. So sign-in.js and auth.js might need this client ID and Okta host if you implement a multiple page application, and this one is a single page application, so you don't really need to pass these values. Now, again, once you know if the session is valid or not, all you have to do is write an if condition that says, oh, if the session is valid, then load this particular content, which is basically your whole application or dashboard or anything it can be. And if the session is inactive, basically load a different content block. I mean, in marketing cloud, we call it content block because it's like different assets. If you want to build a complete email, you can build that email in a content block, and then you can call that content block from any location. So of course, you can't call an email content block in Cloudpages because the asset types are different. So yeah.
So in the core Salesforce world, the equivalent of this is, say, if you were doing Visual Force, this would be a Visual Force component.
Ah.
And you're sort of saying, hey, if data session is true, I'm going to show this component, which is a logged in with everything that you have in it, your dashboard widgets or whatever. Otherwise, your else is showing a different component that's showing, oh, error, you're not logged in, you're not allowed to see this. And then I guess in the more modern day world, these may be two lightning components that we have, and we conditionally showing one or the other.
Yeah. I mean, so getting this token value or getting this value of whether they're active or not is the purpose. And once you have the value, you have multiple ways in achieving what you want to do. Now, creating Okta app is pretty simple. You can go to Okta.com free trial and register for a account. This is a sample account. I think this account is expired. You create an account, and once you have this account created, you navigate to admin. And of course, if you're in an enterprise, and if you want to implement this, you contact your admin and you tell them, hey, you need to create an app. And the way they create an app is, so the type of app that you're going to create is OIDC web app. So it's a single page web app that uses OIDC authentication protocol. And once you have this app created, it will create the client ID.
And OIDC stands for, let's see, OpenID Connect.
OpenID, yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
in the previous slide, he called it OpenID Connect.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, this is where you create the app, OpenID, yes, OpenID Connect, and web application. Oh, once you have this app, so while you create, once you create this app, what you do is you whitelist your marketing cloud endpoints. You go to security, API, trusted origins, and then enter your cloud page URL like this. Now, the difference that you notice is I've just given pub.sfmccontent.com. You don't have to enter the complete URL, just the host name is fine. And we enable cause and redirect. And then you launch and test. So while you launch and test, there are a few things that you want to check. Is you need to ensure that Okta signing.min.js is loaded up, and the same way. Yeah. So you want to make sure that your introspect API call goes. So this introspect API call is the one that basically connects with Okta and says that, hey, somebody's asking the widget to be loaded, and then you have a different API call that gets the token and other information. That's token API call. Now you have demo URL, and I've got demo video as well. So I'll quickly run you through this demo video.
Does your demo URL are you able to just show what it looks like to the end user? A successful login, a failure login, or you've got it in the video?
I've got it on the video.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So this is where you create an account into Okta. Once you create an account, it will give you your org specific URL. So this URL is very specific to you, and you would basically receive an email with your password. So use that password to log in. And as you log in for the first time, you'll be asked to do two things. You need to reset password, and you would also need to use Okta app to for multi-factor authentication. You need to enable multi-factor authentication. Yeah. So you use Okta app to set up multi-factor authentication. Scan the QR code in your mobile app, and So after the Q&A, probably if we want to do hands-on, we can try this out. Okay, so yeah, so this is how the Okta screen looks like. Right after you log in, you go to admin. I've not used enter code option. Getting push notification is much more easier. Now, this is the admin console where you navigate to applications. Oh, before I created an application, I basically created a Cloudpage endpoint because we need to whitelist this URL. And this is the Marketing Cloud instance. What you do is you log into Marketing Cloud. And I keep forgetting my password. You have to change password like every 2 months. That's like suggested from Marketing Cloud on the Marketing Cloud side. That's the policy that we have. So you log in and go to Cloudpages. Oh, and notice that I'm in incognito. So when you're in incognito, enable cookies. So this is something that people do often, right? People would log in incognito and they'll say like Marketing Cloud doesn't work because you have to enable cookies. So you enable cookies and then create. So this is basically a blanket page, which is unpublished page because you need to generate this URL. You generate an URL. All right. Now, don't worry about this URL because so the URL that I have looks pretty like random because it's a demo instance. But if you're a client, you have central authentication package and your URL would look more fancy. Okay, so this is where we create application details. I mean, make sure you select single page web application, not a normal web application. So yes, copy the URL. You whitelist the URL in your sign in and sign out. So you're basically informing Okta that hey, these are the URLs from where sign in and sign out requests are going to come from. We enable authorization. So authorization, interaction code, and refresh token. These are the 3 grant types that we have. Now, you see, right after we save, we get a client ID, which is good. We copy the client ID, and then you go to API, and then this is where we are whitelisting the complete Marketing Cloud. You're all saying that hey, any requests would come from Marketing Cloud, asking you for resources like JavaScript file. Give them, give those files. And once we have that, okay, did I do something after this? Oh, then the code. So this is a standard code. I have the code available in the PPT, and I'll also put it in GitHub so you can use this code. Now you can customize this code to any extent that you would want, and this is a simple implementation one. Now, if you notice in the code, I'll have to change the client ID, and then the domain basically comes from your admin console, and you specify the redirect URL, which is the URL that you have created. Yeah, the redirect URL. And basically that's it. So you just change 3 values and you're good to go. And then you copy this page, go to Marketing Cloud, and paste it and deploy the page or publish the page. Usually in Marketing Cloud, once you publish the page, it takes about 1 or 2 minutes. So I've cut it down to this one. before I open the page, I've opened up network tab to make sure that we are able to see what goes in and comes around back. You see here, yeah, the introspect request goes out, and I log in. I'll get a push notification once I authorize my push notification in my mobile app. I'll be logged in. So I'm logged in, and then same way goes for logout. Now logout, I want to show this one particular item on logout. So once you log out, if you look at the URL, it basically redirects to a bit of a temporary URL with a lot of information, things like ID, a token, and there are about like 6 different information. Usually what happens is these URLs will be posted back to your pub.sfmc.content.com/ and then you'd have this 5 different variables, and marketing cloud will basically throw out an error. That is the reason why you'd always have to use a redirect URL, so that you would sign out, and then so that's the recorded demo. So before I go into the next section, any questions from anyone?
Those little gray areas. So the gray areas that said you're not signed in, and then the other one. Those are your 2
content
blocks.
Yeah.
So this is obviously a demo in the real world. Instead of those boxes, you have something that you actually
you have your
trying
full
to protect.
application. Yes, you have your full application. Yeah.
Very cool.
All right. Any questions so far?
Hi, I've been working like only 6 months with Marketing Cloud, and I'm not an architect. I'm a marketing analyst. But I have this problem. In Marketing Cloud, we have campaigns for different areas in the companies. And whenever they ask for the results, I always send, a screenshot, right? Because we have limited seats. I cannot give a seat for so much just to see an open rate from the email.
Mm-hmm.
So we could use this solution to build dashboards, as you said, for these campaigns, right? So we don't have to waste seats for the rest of the team.
This is one use case which that we worked on. I mean, so if let's say you have a data extension, but you have all your sent results and everything, you can export that data extension as a beautiful dashboard using JavaScript libraries. And one of a very good library that I like is ArcJS. What it does is it allows you to create reports that you can like drag and drop fields into it. So you don't have to configure a full-fledged report. You can just give that page to your marketer, and if they want to slice and dice the data, they can do it. Now, we have built this page, we built that dashboard. Of course, it is accessible to everyone, so we have to like lock it with OKTA, and that's pretty possible. That's pretty much possible, yeah.
Amazing, because we already have OKTA, so we are.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah.
You can implement it like a couple of days. Sorry, any questions from virtual folks? People join.
So one thing here, so the client ID which we use here, can we encrypt that, or I mean, we can just use the client ID there as it is, which OKTA provides?
You can use it as it is in your cloud page, because your cloud page is of course secure, and all the data is stored in server side. But in case if you would want to encrypt it, you can store those. You can store the client ID as a password in your password. In your marketing cloud instance, and then you can use them in in your AMP functions, and then pass it to SJS. So basically, the way how you do is we typically don't use it. Yeah, go to key management and create a key like this, and then store it. I mean, if you would want to encrypt it, go ahead and encrypt it, and you can use AMP functions to decrypt the password. So for one use case, what we did was we ended up encrypting not exactly client ID. It's kind of a token, a persistent token. So we ended up encrypting it with initialization vector and password and so on and everything. So and then AMP functions, there are AMP functions that can decrypt it, and then on demand, yeah, you can do that. So if you want to securely store your client ID, this is where you go.
One quick comment to make is in the OpenID Connect flow, the client ID isn't exactly a secret thing.
Oh yeah.
So it's not something that you have to protect. Like if you go to a website that says, log in with Google, and you click log in with Google, if you look at your URL in your browser, very quickly you'll see a URL flash up that'll be Google something something / authorize something, and there'll be a client ID equals something. That client ID is similar in the context of what you're doing here. So it doesn't have to be secret for everything to be secure in this specific case. Yeah. You mentioned before, that some of these things, there's a good way to do this and a bad way. The bad ways, you probably will get in trouble with your security teams and so on. Have you shown the solution to any of your security teams to get their opinion?
Oh yeah, I mean, we showed this solution. We implemented this for 2 or 3 clients, and then went through security team, and they were super happy with it.
Good.
Of course, I mean, anywhere Okta is involved, people are like, it's a stamp of approval. They don't have to worry. Of course, people want to see your implementation to make sure that all the pages are properly authenticated, and if we do not want people to directly hit a page and then be able to access it without a valid session token, and we do not want people to spoof the token as well. Those are the items that security team typically validate.
Cool.
One quick question, like how session hijack is prevented in this case? I can see most of the things are in cookies, right? So that session can be hijacked. I know like mostly people use their own laptops, but
I think those are the ones that are handled by Okta. Even if your session cookie is stolen, with your device information and IP, there are multiple factors Okta uses to authenticate this particular request, not just the token. I mean, one item that we know is token, the domain from where the request comes from, and the device. I mean, even if you use the same cookie in a different device, it would basically identify you, and it would ask you to re-log in again with your password.
And that's because you're using that Okta SDK, client-side SDK.
Yeah.
So it's doing some stuff. It's not just
Exactly.
relying on this and this.
So within SDK, there is this huge, to what I think, because we ended up editing some functions in SDK in the Okta signin.js file. Only one function that we know is calling this Okta sign-in method, but then internally it does like 10 different things. Even the API call that you see, there are 3 different API calls that goes out. One is to interact, and then one is to get token, and then the third one is to validate user information.
So when you implemented this, was it for like internal people or for?
It was for enterprise.
How they are onboarding people on there? Like Okta needs all this username and password. How that their onboarding process?
Because they're like enterprise customer. I mean, because they're employees. They're already a part of.
Yeah. So they are not using Salesforce. They're using something else where they can log in.
Exactly.
How easy or difficult it was for them to? You just create a landing page, and you will have an iframe from their implementation.
Yes.
So how easy? Like, I'm curious, like why we trying to pull data from Marketing Cloud? Why we are not directly using API on, like they have certain implementation. Why we are not trying to do that? Like why this approach was?
One is time constraint, time and resource constraint. That was like the main reason. So we have the data from Marketing Cloud. We wanted to, spin up a dashboard quickly. Not just a dashboard. It was basically a full-fledged application, right?
Yeah.
We didn't
That's
have
what I was curious.
a team. We didn't have a MuleSoft team, and we didn't have a web app team to build all these things. Whereas we had data in Marketing Cloud, and we had developers who can do all these things. So we figured out, yeah, let's put them together and secure it. And you have a project which went live.
Yeah, I was curious about that use case. And also, can it be used for the guest session as well? So for example, you're a company doing something like sending some personalized email to people, and then you have this landing page and the user do not exist yet. Can I have something like as a guest user, concept of guest, like if I have an Amazon, right? I can, or Apple, for example, I can go on their website and do shopping as a guest user. can we have something like this on this where Okta can store it? You know what I mean?
No,
Like what I'm
totally
trying to
understand.
ask.
I think this is more of a question specific to Okta to see if they have a functionality of allowing guest users.
Yeah.
I mean, Okta is basically for users that it knows, or it will basically connect to an LDAP server or something like that to get the list of
Yeah,
users.
that's why I asked like
For
how
this-
you're onboarding people on Okta.
Onboarding
Yeah.
people, that's completely an Okta process. I mean,
Yeah, the reason I asked because then you can have for every unknown user, you have certain IDs stored, and then you have a single user for that particular. So my instance, right? You can store all those information on Okta, and it can.
we don't want
do
to
that,
end up
yeah.
creating multiple users in Okta, but then if you want to have guest user kind of a thing, then there are multiple ways you can do so. You can link that with your subscriber key in Marketing Cloud. Or you can create a lead in Salesforce and make sure that this anonymous guest user is given an identity, or better, have Interaction Studio tied up to your core page, and Interaction Studio can track all your anonymous activities and then give you an identity.
And this use case can be done for personalized experience as well, right?
No, absolutely, yeah. So,
Yeah,
if you have your own website, a completely different website which you build, you can go ahead and
All other user will see their personalized information on the same page because you are fetching data from Marketing Cloud.
yes.
for
So
that
after
particular-
authenticated, whatever people see, it's basically the website logic. So whatever we write in as a web developer, we write any logic that use personalized.
So where that part comes in, so I'm assuming you have a dashboard personalized for everyone. So how you are segregating data, like where that data security comes into the picture. So let's say Pay is a user, I'm a user, Pay is seeing something else, I'm seeing something else. How you're securing that, like in Salesforce, like how we have SOCL with security enforced
So
and
in
things
case of
like that.
Marketing Cloud, once you log into Okta, right, the user info API call, that is
So
that.
I think what you asked, how the data should be. So,
Exactly. So
Yeah,
how
so
data
it's
being
in the
shared.
data extension, we have data like table,
Yeah.
same
Right.
like our objects in
Okay.
Salesforce, where you
Okay.
can store, and
Got it.
how we are matching it using the subscriber key or a primary. You will have a key like, oh, if Mahateshwar is this, so you will get his data and show it, oh, this is how it's
So,
reported.
so the thing to remember in Marketing Cloud, you don't have the concept of row level security like we have in core Salesforce. So it's sort of having to be done by the developer in some way by making sure they're filtering the query, or I think what you're about to show with here where you are,
So
some of you're getting right the
I mean, you get the user info. That is where you know this is the email ID or person of the user, and then you would have to, and then you can restrict access for the particular user. Again, subscriber key would have become a complex term because subscriber key specifies your end customer, and these are like internal users. So if you want to maintain a bit of a segregation,
It's
and
similar.
then your slide you had the if active session shows this.
oh yes,
something,
yeah.
Like I guess in that scenario, you would just have multiple versions of these. If you are an admin user, show this.
Yeah.
If you're a marketing user, show this. If you're a something user, show
Yeah, it's similar to how we do security predicate in Einstein, right? I mean, where you have to get data based on role,
Yeah.
define or that table, and on based of that, it shows all those role level predicate.
Yeah. Well, I'd argue this is more like in your Lightning component when you have like a conditional rendering. If it's this type of user, render this component, otherwise render this component. And then behind the scenes, those components do whatever they need to do.
I mean, so as once Okta basically validates that you're logged in and you're the right person, it will just give you a thumbs up, and it's up to you to customize it to any way that you want.
Have you had any issues with performance or scale or anything of this? I guess it's a small number of users.
We basically use it for like 100 users. I think Marketing Cloud supports it very well, and Okta 100 users was it's like pretty easy for them.
Yeah.
So we didn't have any performance issues, and yeah. The only issue we had, like, or one of the major issues we had was redirecting and then trying to figure out how to whitelist URLs because some URLs that will go into your SDK are not exactly hard-coded, not exactly like from the configuration they are like hard-coded. So the first time implementation or debugging was the difficult part, most difficult part.
Any other questions?
We override the URL, like the URL we got. Can I overwrite it?
You can overwrite from the configuration because the configuration says client side, but your URL will not be whitelisted. Okta would receive your URL and would see it, validate it with the data it has, and it would basically reject the request, saying that I don't have this URL whitelisted. So only an admin would be able to log in and whitelist the URL.
So basically, what I was talking about, that URL will be human readable or something. We can do.
Yeah, URL will be absolutely human readable.
Vishal, I'm curious. I think you were the one who mentioned at the start you've done a bunch of authenticated cloud pages. I'm curious at your thoughts of a potential solution here and how this compares to some of what you've played with before.
Yeah, so basically, I also have few questions. Right now here we have used OpenID, right? So like sometime what happen, like it's, let's say we have to implement in some like they are using some other authentication, like let's say SAML based authentication, not the OpenID. So can we implement that as well using that? Because there are two things, multiple things needed. Like we have to set up some metadata as well, right? So how we set up that metadata here in this?
We can. So the couple of caveats. Configuration changes completely for SAML based implementation. So you can refer to Okta's GitHub. They have a pretty good documentation of what kind of configuration has to be passed for which authorization method or protocol. First is configuration changes, and the SDK method, Okta sign in with get token. So that kind of remains same for different types of authentication. But there's one other method of sign in widget as well. So you have to choose the right method for your protocol.
And I haven't done it before, but I think implementing SAML in this use case would be much harder because SAML, you've got all this stuff to do with decoding the assertion and doing things like that. Whereas the 08 OpenID Connect scenario, you've got this simple token, you can pass it at any point and it gets back stuff. It's a lot easier as a developer to do that than something with SAML, I think. Yeah.
I haven't tried the SAML one. Yeah.
Have any of you guys tried implementing SAML from scratch? They always use like it comes with Salesforce or a Java library or a Node library or something like that. From what I understand, it's quite tedious.
Yeah. So we have to follow. Map different files at the server level and at the the browser level, application level as well.
Yeah, because you've got certificates and things to deal with SAML as well. That becomes hard. And I don't know what you can do in SSJS with that if you support some of this encrypting, decrypting, blah, blah, blah.
That's where things would get a bit complicated, I guess, because Marketing Cloud doesn't really support importing certificates or storing it in a certificate store.
Yeah.
I think that would be a limitation. Just
Yeah. One more question. Like this is for like we have implemented using Okta, but if let's say we have to implement with SFMC SSO, so I mean, what things would be same in SFMC SSO?
We can't really use SFMC's SSO as in like, because the SFMC's authentication. But again, okay, let me ask you this question: when you say SSO, are you linking up with a different what do you call that, LDAP server or something like that in your enterprise?
Let's say we have built one cloud page, and here let's say we are using Okta, but instead of that, I want to authenticate my page using the SFMC credentials which I have used, like using the SSO, like we do in Sales Cloud, right?
You can't use SFMC credential to validate cloud pages because the AMP functions, there are no supporting AMP functions that would do it. But if you have a authentication service provider that is connected to your SFMC instance, now this becomes a separate authentication service provider. You would be able to, something like Okta. And if you have a service provider like Okta, you would be able to link them up into your cloud page.
The reason I think you can do it with Sales Cloud is Sales Cloud, or the Salesforce core platform, is able to act as an identity for you. So Sales Cloud can be both Sales Cloud and be Okta in that scenario. But SFMC doesn't do that, right? SFMC can connect to one of those, but in itself can't be one.
Yes, it can't basically assert if someone is like the right user. It cannot say it cannot authenticate you or it cannot authorize you. for a service. It can do it for
Yeah.
itself, but not for others.
Just thinking out loud, and I know this is probably a terrible idea. Could you have the user, enter the username and password for SFMC, and you call the SOAP API login method or something, and see if that works, and then you say, okay, you're logged in.
We did that.
Did it?
We did that for that's the quirky approach of doing it. Security basically was not happy with it. So
So it works, but it's not recommended.
it works, not recommended. On a similar way, right? We basically used we built a server-to-server integration, and we used a similar approach to validate whether the data that it receives is valid by calling this. What do you call that? Like this was right before JWT was introduced. We built an API system. Now we wanted to generate a JWT-like token, and this was like 2 years back. We didn't have JWT method, so we ended up calling Marketing Cloud's auth endpoint and got the token within Cloudpage, and we shared that token with the external server application. And that server application would further use this token to communicate with, to Marketing Cloud Cloudpage API. And internally in the Cloudpage, we would receive the token and we would call validate email API to validate if it receives a 200 response to basically validate the token. Again, this is not the right approach to JWT validation. It's a bit of a workaround. Basically using Marketing Cloud's own authentication endpoint, and then sharing that auth token to somebody else, and then asking them to give it back whenever they want access.
Sorry, another follow-up question is, I know, as an ISP or as whatever, you can sort of build apps for Marketing Cloud, like an App Exchange app. Like there was that one that you showed me a while back, the whole, you can run queries in Marketing Cloud without actually, deploying the automation or something. That framework that lets you build those type of apps, are you able to somehow, I assume that's got to authenticate with your Marketing Cloud instance somehow. Is there something in that framework, a JavaScript library, or something you could use for this type of authentication?
Okay, there are two problems here. One is custom content block. A custom content block uses an SDK. For the name, they call it a particular SDK. So what this SDK basically has functionality to set the email content or Cloudpage content, and it can read the content. But apart from setting and reading the content, it cannot do any other functionality. So out of the box, there is no function to access any other assets. Like if you want to access data extension, you can't really do that. But if you go to Journey Builder, create a custom journey activity, you have methods that basically does a bit more than that. Now this particular solution, to take it to the next level, what we can do is we can create a custom content block that can be used in Cloudpages. So that way, people don't have to write this complete complete HTML and authentication and import the Java file. So they can do something like this. Navigate to Cloudpage. And it's basically an app idea. So if anyone is interested.
Basically, what you showed, like if they just have that thing over there, so everything will be controlled by this particular component.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it would look something. So these apps that you see here, these are the standard ones that you have. But then you can have custom apps. For one example I give you is this is something that we have built, right? Where instead of the button text and link URL and everything, you can have this enter your client ID here, your auto domain, and all the other configuration details. Get them, and then internally you can, if you basically go to some .com. So what this particular app does is it will internally generate this HTML. Sorry, I went into the wrong one. So instead of generating this HTML, you end up generating the complete HTML that includes your JavaScript file, authentication method, OKTA SDK, and validation and everything. So any end user who would want to implement OKTA, they can basically open their Cloudpage, drag and drop this custom component, configure everything, done. There are a few caveats. This if and else, and then passing the data of whether the session is valid or not. You have to handle that in your customer.
So to clarify what I was asking for, I was referring to this thing, for this Query
Yeah,
Studio
that's
thing, and because this isn't a custom email content block, right? This is like
This is a
some sort of
custom.
app.
This is
Yeah.
a custom map.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't have access to their libraries. These libraries that are used
Oh.
by. So I'll give you another example. Right, there is this SFMC Finder app or Chrome extension, built by Montu Pradhan. Yeah, where you can search data extension and such. Oh, things like SFMC
Yeah.
Finder. You can search data. Now, if you go to the code view of this, he basically forwards all the requests to one of his server, and then from the server, it internally authenticates with all stacks of Marketing Cloud.
Okay.
Now, as an ISV, you won't be able to get that level of access to all instances of Marketing Cloud, right? Because Montu Pradhan, he's a Salesforce developer, so he internally got access to all the stack, and then he's able to do it. Then yeah.
Interesting.
But if the SDK, and there are two different SDKs, one for content block and another one is for Journey Builder, and the SDK for Journey Builder has a bit more functions that you can use. So, any general question about Marketing Cloud? Anything general on anything about Marketing? Oh, I mean, so most of the Marketing Cloud is not. Most time when you work in Marketing Cloud, you'll be working on HTML, CSS, building units, and that's like 90% of the time. And 10% of the time is where you get these complex solutions, and you're like, oh, can we bend this particular solution, or can we have this highly customized, solution? That's like 10% of the time, and the other 90% of the time will be like emailing and handling volumes.
So if someone is how much time does take them to like learn Marketing Cloud and get it done? I think like I'm discussing this. That's like I want to learn Marketing. And where can I learn? Can I practice it? And, like how do I get the job also?
Okay, this is like almost in every meeting you have this question asked. How do I practice Marketing Cloud? Like Salesforce SFDC has a free instance. You can go and register 10 different instances and try out, have hands-on. No worries. Salesforce doesn't bother about it. Even register 10 instances. For Marketing Cloud, it is really difficult to get your hands on in an instance unless you're a partner or you're a non-profit organization, or you'll have to, spend some money to get access, or you have to work for a client. So one easy way I would tell you is find a client with whom you can work, and then you can basically negotiate a deal with them, saying that you would both work and learn Marketing Cloud with them. Learning Marketing Cloud is not complex at all. It basically would take 4 to 6 weeks to learn about like 50 to 60% of the items in my mind. Pay you to be able to like pay in here. Like my thought have always been like you take 4 to 6 weeks of courses and go through Trailhead, and you'll be able to do most of the stuff in Marketing Cloud. That will take you to this intermediate level of Marketing Cloud developer. Now, to become an advanced level of developer, that needs a bit of practice, not just in the email development in the HTML and CSS, but that is where you would need to know about scripting. Like you need to know about Node.js. You need to know a lot about APIs, how API works. Now, once you know these three things of Node.js, JavaScript, and then APIs, you go into that advanced level of user or developer in marketing. Now, in case of getting job, 4 to 6 weeks of training, hands-on Trailhead. I think
Switching within the company maybe.
Switching within the
switching within
company.
company. That's
I'm curious. I know there's a bunch of you who do work in
They
marketing. So
trust
how did you get into it?
Cool. Well, I already like the part of marketing that is mixed with technology. My husband is a programmer, so this is not like at all unknown to me, but I cannot write code at all. But honestly, this part of tech is very scary for folks marketers, so it's well paid. So I decided to go through this path, but actually I have a question similar to that because today I'm like a translator. So I bring together the tech team, engineering team, and also customer success, support, sales, whoever needs something in Marketing Cloud. So I understand kind of both, but when I see code, it's like oh. But I want to improve because I stuck with a wall where I want to run basic automation. I cannot build automation on Cloud. So actually, that's something I want to learn because journey, email marketing, I mean, all of that is good, but then I need help when I want to pull data from Sales Cloud or something more complex. So that's what I want to learn.
That again, you need access to the platform, and because you said like if your company has marketing for project, you'll be easily able to get access to the platform. And once you have access to the platform, get into a demo environment, so you try out a couple of journeys. I mean, literally journeys basically have over like 15 to 20 different activities, and automation has about another 20 different activities. Configurations are, you read through the configuration, you'll be easily able to understand what the configuration means and says. And we have a pretty active community both in Slack. There's a pretty good group, and I would say like better than Stack Overflow, you get access much faster in Slack. There are a few groups like Email Geeks is a group where you get most of the access. Next is you can go to Marketing Cloud community. A few folks like there's another guy Matthews, and there's a couple of other guys, and I'm also active in the community group. Any question that comes in, be it configurations or development, I mean, you would pitch in an answer. So,
would you recommend for someone if you're getting started in doing automations or something, maybe start with sort of more simple journeys that are using just the point and click, and then starting to adapt a little bit more to say, oh, here's some AMP script that you can copy into your email templates, and you know that this works for this scenario, and then you can then change it. Oh, now I've got a different campaign to run. I'll change this chunk of AMP script that I saw, and I recognize this bit. I can change this bit. I can change this, and you start tweaking, and you try it out in a demo data extension or like a playground data extension, so not where your real emails are going out, but something just for you and your colleagues to play with. That's probably a way to do it as well. And I'm curious, are any of the training courses from Salesforce any good? I haven't done any of the official marketing cloud.
I haven't done the training. That's first.
Were you around when we had that trainer in? Did you? No, you would have been too late for it. At one point, we had someone from Salesforce come in and train a bunch of our people on Marketing Cloud, and they were really good at sort of taking you through step by step, some examples. Here's some things you can take away, and sort of like some exercise guides and things you can work your way through. I don't know. We got access to it in a really weird roundabout sort of way, so I don't know what the normal way is to get that training. But it's something to ask. Like you guys will have an account executive from Salesforce. Something you can ask him or her. Hey, how do I get some of this training? They might have resources and they say, oh, yeah, we've got this course coming up next month. It's virtual online. You can sign up here. Or they might have a webinar or something like that that you can join and hopefully learn a little bit, get some examples, and then once you have the examples, you can play with it, change it for your business, and then go.
Yeah. I haven't thought about that because we have an executive from Salesforce. We have different solutions for Salesforce, so I know I should take advantage of that, but sometimes I feel overwhelmed. I don't know where to start because today I don't know what I don't know, so I don't know what can be built in the platform. So that's why I wanted to come to learn some new things that we already could be implementing like tomorrow.
So the learning part in Marketing Cloud is one of the things that I wanted to do from a long time but haven't done is wanted to create a learning which basically is like day by day use cases. So on day one, if you have access to Marketing Cloud environment, try this welcome journey. I wanted to create this like 1 month of exercises that you can try out and touch different areas in journey builder and automation. I mean, quite often. So when I started teaching Marketing Cloud to my wife, she is my wife, by the way. So we initially did this for the first 1 week. where I gave her a scenario every day on, for example, a drip campaign. How do you set up a drip campaign? I would give the complete requirement and she would build it. And so I ended up giving that particular 1 week's of exercises to a couple of my friends who wanted to get into marketing cloud, but then didn't really continue it. Now that's one space or one thing that people or experts in marketing cloud should do, where they we need to build a plan for someone who's coming into marketing cloud, a plan with a list of exercises that you can. Of course, we have Trailhead. That's a good place, but without access to, if you have access to marketing cloud, that's well and good.
I think I saw some of the training institute, so they are providing you the training and also access to marketing cloud. So I saw it somewhere online, but I haven't written their ID. But they are providing it. They will give you videos. Might be expensive, but the thing is, if you really want to get in, like there are training institutes that are doing it. And it's all in Canada. But I will copy it.
I think the good thing in your case, Daniel, is since your company has Marketing Cloud, you can go and you have something to play with, which is at least, and you're already using it, which is a good starting point. So hopefully, if there are some of these resources, I don't know.
I saw it somewhere.
I'm not sure if that's like allowed. The reason is in marketing cloud you can send email. I mean, you don't want someone getting access to marketing cloud and sending emails to like 20 million people, some random spam email. That would basically damage Salesforce's IP.
Yeah. So what these guys are doing is they are acquiring this marketing cloud from somewhere, and they will give you that business unit. But just it was training. Like they bought the marketing cloud, and they are just doing this training for one of them.
That's still super risky, though. Random people having access to the business unit, because you can't. I remember asking you that question. Can we block all emails coming out of this business unit to a domain or whatever? And there's no way to do it. So that could be risky if you have a student who gets the demo business unit and starts spamming people with millions and millions and millions, accidentally or deliberately. That could be very
especially
bad.
when you learn this automations or emails in marketing cloud, this is the first thing that I would say. Anytime you see a send button, don't click it. Because like you wouldn't, you would think that you have selected only 2 customers to be receiving email, whereas you would end up selecting like all subscribers, which would have like 2 million records, and all 2 million people would end up receiving an email with subject called test email, and then this is a test. That has happened before. That has happened multiple times. So anytime you see send button,
now it gives a pop-up saying that we have selected 2 users from this data extension. So,
I mean, Salesforce tried kind of putting some guardrails to it, but there's only few things that Salesforce can do.
I'm curious, like Christina, you've been doing Marketing Cloud for what, 5 years now?
Yeah.
How did you get started? How did you learn?
Honestly, just baptism by fire. Because when I got hired, I was doing Social Studio, which is about to retire.
Yeah, rating 6.
But I'm very blessed because I'm the only one in the Philippines who got trained by the US before Social Studio came out. So I was starting with Legacy, Rated 6. Very old. And then when they transitioned to Social Studio, I was invited to come and be trained for that in Singapore by the US Salesforce. So I was the only one in the Philippines who was doing it.
Wow.
And then so they know me as the Social Studio group. And then eventually they needed someone in Bangkok with it's a very niche skill set. So they were trying to build a team, and when I got there, they said, "Oh, you have to do Marketing Cloud." And I'm like, "Okay." And then you have to take the certification because Vlad had a training, but you need the certification before you actually go to that training. So I had to learn it for like 3 days. So it's possible to learn it. No, it's not. It's not. That's what I'm saying. It's not. But I'm very, very blessed because of the fact that there was a training when I came to Bangkok, and that's how it started, and that was in 2017. So that's how it started. And folks who don't know coding, by the way, I'm not an IT girl. It's my course is far from it. I'm an art person. I graduated with an art degree, humanities degree, but learning to the reading data eventually came second nature when learning marketing cloud because of the fact that you have to understand the data to be able to build what you want to answer your pain points. That's why, as Matesh said, that you have to have a plan when you use marketing cloud. So that's where I started like learning things like reading up about data, the structure of marketing cloud. The reason behind it is also because it was an acquired platform by Salesforce. And if you notice, the architecture of marketing cloud is so different from all the platforms or the suites of Salesforce. That's why it was mind-boggling for me to learn it because like, why is it so different? Why is it there's so many nuances? So there are a lot of now we're very, very fortunate because a lot of people now doing boot camps in YouTube. So I got flagged by Salesforce video that there's another boot camp coming in. So maybe you could start with that. I suggest that one because I also try to keep up with the boot camp that they also teach some of the updates and winter update is coming up. So there are things like that. So that's how I started basically. Baptism by fire. I was given a client and they said you have to learn marketing cloud, how to build an email first, email studio. Just build an email for them. So I had to learn it on my own. So I have to go to YouTube and everything. But because I have access to it and I have a client who is, more than happy to let me use their access and learn how to build this in their emails, I was able to learn it essentially. And from there, I learned how to do journeys. And then essentially at the end of the whole 3 months, I guess, 4 to 6 weeks that doing it with several clients actually, I was able to learn how to match the data to the journeys that I needed to build in etc. It's a long process, as Matesh said. It's a long process.
An endless process.
Yeah.
And endless because the thing about marketing clouds is that as long as the client or you have pain points that you need to answer with your marketing, then you have a use case to be able to do it in marketing cloud. And it's always a partnership of data and function and always knowing how to actually mitigate and answer pain points on that part. Because before I was like just designing journeys with no end, and then at the end of the day was like, did it actually answer the pain point of my client? Did it actually answer, do they actually have the data that to actually run this journey? So that was until now it's still learning because it's never ending update. It's never ending nuances that, why is there an error here that wasn't there before? Or why is this code not running when it was running yesterday? So, but again, as long as you have access and you can practice, then you learn it. So eventually, so.
I totally agree with you. Like access, that's primary. Once you have access, you have multiple ways to learn it.
Yeah.
You can spin up any use case that you want.
And my number one rule in training is that no rogue clicks because I had like one time when I was training that I saw someone send to about 1,000 people. So I was like, where did you get this data extension? Like, I just saw it available here. So I was like testing and then I sent no rogue clicks. That's always the rule. And eventually we can just put them in one business unit with no access to data extension, no shared data extensions. That's the beauty of marketing cloud now. It evolved eventually. It really evolved according to how we would need it and how it would respond to users actually. Because before it wasn't.
There is this very good comparison I hear from someone. So there are like multiple marketing tools in we have like marketing cloud, Pardot, and then Marketo. Marketing Cloud is probably the tool which which are like 70 to 80% of things that you do. You can basically configure it. It's Marketing Cloud is so developer friendly, whereas the other tools, starting from Mail Modo to Pardot and everything,
Yeah.
those are like business friendly. Anything you can do, you can basically drag and drop, click and do all those. Marketing Cloud, while you have drag and drop, drag and drop options, and you can achieve almost all scenarios using drag and drop, you can do the same thing with coding as well.
Yeah.
So if you're an advanced level developer, you want to do, yeah, go ahead and write scripts for doing the same thing that can be done with this. Another point is the data part. I'm sure like any Marketing Cloud developer would work. I mean, if in data and Marketing Cloud is pretty tricky. You don't have insert statement. You don't have delete statements. Like the typical SQL people, typically from SQL background, people think that if I need to insert something and write an insert statement, delete statement, update. No, Marketing Cloud just supports select statement, and you need to kind of understand and figure out how this select statement with action works. I worked on other tools like for 7, 8 years before, so I had this complete mindset of SQL is select, insert, update, and delete. The day I came to Marketing Cloud, I was super confused. It took me 1 week just to understand how to write a simple insert in Marketing. So that was the worst part. I mean, you work in SQL, so any Marketing Cloud developer would spend at least like 6 months to 1 year in just writing queries in Automation Studio. Now, that's the golden time where you would understand a lot about data. And I mean, so Marketing Cloud is again tenant controlled, or you can't have queries running more than 30 minutes. So you need to be pretty good at optimizing your queries, where if you want to combine like 10 million of records with another 10 million of records, we don't want query to be running like long. Sorry, was that a question?
No, he was just saying thank you, and he's off to back to his classes.
Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to say something about training. This summer, if you're in a partner, I had access to, I guess it's under certification days, but there was a 4-week Marketing Cloud training that I did. And it was great because they gave you a CDP, they gave you Marketing Cloud, you signed up for DevOrg, there was step-by-step. Every week there was a 1 hour, I think it was 1 hour meeting where you could meet up with everyone that was in the same course and ask questions. And they had like they had a Slack channel. It was a lot of support, and you could just work through all of the steps that they gave to create the data extensions and do all the mapping and all that stuff. I think it was only for partners, but so if there's anyone there that is working with partners, that is another option because it was really great. Yeah.
Very cool. Thanks so much for sharing that. Yeah. Did you have to do anything special to sign up, Nikki, or just a?
No, it was through I think it was just one of the partner emails that was out there, and I think this summer they ran the certification days where they were trying to get lots of partners certified on different products, and so they gave this sort of supportive 4-week thing, and then the idea was for people to write the exam and become certified. So no, I just had to sign up for it, and I think there was hundreds of people in it. It was big groups. Yeah.
Very cool.
That basically reminded me of this particular Slack channel. I'm part of this channel, and people discuss about like trainings and certifications.
Sorry. Oh no. Christina hit the button. There's a button.
There are multiple channels. The other one is Email Geeks. Now, this is another good channel in Slack. Good workspace.
How do you get invited to these? Is there a way to invite? If I go to mclearningcanvas.com, there's no register link. It's just so just /.
I'm part of that. I can send you the link.
Okay, cool.
I'll create a link for you. And in addition, there's also I don't know if it's like international, there's developer Slack, Marketing Cloud developers.
Yeah.
So I'll send you that link as well.
That's the Email Geeks one. So anything's okay. This Email Geeks, it's not specific to Marketing Cloud. It's basically for any email platform. This is the Email Geeks channel, Slack channel. Again, there is a website called Email Geeks, I guess. You can emailgeeks.geekchat.chat. I think from there you can get access to this channel. I usually use these channels for to connect with other developers, and you get all these weird scenarios, and you get access to most of your scenarios as well. And they are better than the support team.
Well, thank you so much, Ritesh. So big round of applause. Really great to hear these creative solutions in Marketing Cloud, sort of ways you can bring together different software to fill the business needs. Yeah, so thanks so much for the great presentation. And I guess we'll share the slides.
Oh, yeah,
afterwards. Great.
And thank you so much for the opportunity. And this is my first time presenting, so I'm super nervous. Thank you so much.
You did great. You did great.
Thanks for
Cool stuff. So I'm just going to stop.